for a lot of diseases, genetic diseases, of course, there's nothing we can really do. There are definitely families we've discovered, that everyone knows carry disease-causing alleles that basically, if they have a child with that disease, the child's going to die. And nothing can really be done other than ease the suffering. Now, in those families, people often say, well, what can you really do except, know in advance? Well, if you've ever been in one of those studies with those people and seen the relief on, let's say, a young woman's face who's pregnant, finding out that, in fact, she doesn't carry that mutation, so she doesn't ever have to worry about that. That's huge. So it's not just about this sort of grim and grisly fact of finding out, who's going to get brain cancer, who's going to get breast cancer, right? It's also about pretty solid knowledge that you're not. And, what's that worth as you go through your day-to-day life? I think a lot.
If we use a genetic test called Oncotype DX, Oncotype is used to decide whether a woman with breast cancer, after she's undergone initial surgery, should go through chemotherapy to prevent the relapse of that breast cancer. If you have a population of 100 women with breast cancer, the reality is to define the appropriate patients to be exposed to chemotherapy, we have to test everyone. So that means we need to add the additional cost of the test for the whole population and making sure that the correct population then receive chemotherapy. So there's a balance in costs. We pay more for the genetic test up front, but we'll most likely pay less for the chemotherapy in that population on the back end because less women will be tested and shown that they should in fact receive that chemotherapy.
The low-hanging fruit in precision medicine and having access to all of this data is in pharmacogenomics. And by that, I mean making sure that we don't give you the wrong medicine. So all of us carry genetic variants that make us predisposed to have adverse reactions to several medications. When they look at even a handful of medications, they find that many of us carry mutations that could make it harmful for us to take a particular medication. And once everybody has their genome as part of their medical record, anytime you're given a prescription, they're immediately going to check to see whether or not you're carrying a mutation that says, no, don't provide this medication because you're going to give this person an adverse reaction. That, I think, is the way that precision medicine will impact most of us immediately. And that's going to cut down on a lot of costs because sometimes, when you give, the right patient the wrong medication, if it doesn't cost their life, it can cost millions of dollars in medical bills and seriously degraded quality of life on top of that. So making sure that people take appropriate medications is going to be one of the first benefits of precision medicine.
Ultimately, what we envision is that genomes will be sequenced for many, most, maybe all patients, so that genetic information that is telling us more and more about our predisposition to disease will be available for everyone. We see this as a very democratic process where everyone should be able to have access to that information and to benefit from it. And the great thing about DNA sequence is that it doesn't change through your life. So if you have it done early in life, it'll be the same decades later. What does change is what we know about that sequence, what we know about how variants in that sequence can contribute to disease, because we're learning more all the time. So patients in the future could be notified that, well, we now know that you are at substantially increased risk of disease X, and there are treatments, there are strategies that can help prevent it from ever happening. And that's where we see this information as potentially being very, very valuable, playing a key role in preventive medicine.